Hello everybody, it's Frosty the Songman, and I have another Red Radio review of the Sundays album, Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic. But first, let me tell you a little bit of history, unrelated. On this day, October 3rd, 1992, Sinead O'Connor ripped up a picture of Pope John Paul II on a Saturday Night Live show, American comedy TV show at night, which isn't funny at all anymore. And on this day, in the year 2000, the bass player of the Cars, Benjamin Orr, died of cancer at his home in Atlanta at age 53. He was also a singer for some of the songs. He was the lead singer of Just What I Needed. I guess you're just what I needed. Let's Go. And Drive. Who's gonna drive you home tonight? His voice kind of sounds like the other lead singer. What's his name? You might think I'm crazy. I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, their voices are kind of similar. Stevie Ray Vaughan, he was killed this day, October 3rd in 1954. No, I'm sorry. Born on this day in 1954. Born. He was not killed. If he was killed in 1954, he would not have had any of his 70s and 80s albums come out. He was born on this day in 1954. He was killed in a helicopter crash on August 27th, 1990. And his family successfully sued the operators of the company that was piloting the helicopter for allowing an unqualified pilot to fly in fog. And they won. They were awarded $2 million, actually. The family of Stevie Ray Vaughan. All right, today is Wednesday, October 3rd, and I am reviewing the Sundays. This is an English band. Not a lot on the inside. Picture of a trilobite or some shit. So this is one of 3 albums. This is their best of the 3. Generally, there's so many good albums to review. I actually had an idea. I might review albums I really don't like just for kicks, but I haven't done it yet. So normally I'm gonna review albums I really like because I want to spread the word about albums that I love and want other people to get into them too. So if it's generally a band that puts out 5 albums, I'm going to review the best one, probably, unless I like them all. All right. The Sundays formed in the late 80s and released just 3 albums, and they were all in the 1990s. The albums were released. They got a record contract with Rough Trade Records. Their first album was Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic, the one I'm reviewing, released in 1990. The biggest hit off this album was Here's Where the Story Ends, which is a very fine song, probably one of the best on the album, if not the best. And it was a top 5 hit in the UK, Here's Where the Story Ends. That's actually how I got introduced. I was watching MTV, and it was like one of their alternative rock shows. I forget the name of it, but they played the video of Here's the Story Ends, and that's how I found out about it. When MTV was good. All of these things suck now. Saturday Night Live, MTV all sucks. They used to be good, and there used to be sources of finding out good bands. All right, the second album was called Blind. The biggest single off that was a cover of Rolling Stones song Wild Horses, which is actually a very fine cover. Very cool song. It was a hit on the radio. Heard it many times. Blind, I had a friend that was way into Blind, and because I introduced him to the Sundays. He had never heard about them. And he actually liked that album better than the one I'm reviewing. I like this one better. But, Blind is good too. Definitely check it out. I guess this probably because I grew on this one and I listened to it first. And I don't know though. I still think this is better. I still think it's more immediate and raw and cool. It's got a coolness quality. But Blind is a good album too. All right, the third album, my kids just got home from school. I'll go up and see them in a second. This is going to be a short review. Not because it's not a good album, but just because there's not much to say. It's just a cool album, and I'm going to play a few songs, and that'll be it. The third album was called Static and Silence. And again, I don't know, let me go into my little rant here. Not really a rant, but just kind of explaining things. A lot of times, bands that make it big, almost always their first album is very good, because that's what breaks them through the threshold. And that's when they have a lot of time to write. That's when they're really excited and hungry, and they're just trying so hard to make it, trying to do the best songs possible, trying to prove themselves. And they have they're much more insular in the good sense. You know, they have a sense in themselves. They are their worst critics. And they want to, they're not influenced by so many forces. Once you get on a record label, you're talking to your manager, you're talking to people at the label, you're talking to all of these influences, and it starts to drive you crazy. And you lose sight of where you started. And I think your music gets watered down, your message gets watered down, your purpose gets watered down. I'm not saying that totally happened to the Sundays for Blind. Like I say, it's a fine album. But I'm just talking in general. There's so many bands that, I don't know, once they get signed and after they put out a few albums, it's just not as immediate and raw and cool as the first couple albums. And they haven't released an album since this one. The singer Harriet Wheeler and guitarist David Gavurin were married, and they're raising children. Their children are probably, pretty old now, probably, in university or whatever. But so they actually, the singer and the guitarist met at a university, I think probably in London, England, and they formed a band, and they got married later. Actually, I think they were married at the time the Sundays put out these albums. So, anybody with kids knows that it's tough. It's tough to do anything, and I'm guessing they probably, with raising kids, they didn't want to put the time into the Sundays anymore, so they just let it go defunct, and they put their time into raising a family. So good on them. Even though it is sad that, they stopped as a band. All right, so the band got signed very early on. They got discovered and got a record deal early on, so they didn't have a big repertoire of music like so many bands do that, were slugging it out on the road for 10 years. They got tons of songs under their belt. Not so for the Sundays. They're pretty green as far as having a lot of experience on the stage and writing songs, having a big song repertoire. And they didn't want to rush the first album, so they actually spent more than a year working on this album. And they were very critical of themselves. They didn't want to force anything. They didn't want to rush anything. And you can kind of tell, in the songs, although it kind of contradicts a lot of my other videos where a lot of great stuff is made under the gun. You got a deadline. So I don't know. I guess maybe people are different. Some people need pressure to create great stuff. And other people need a lot of time and a lot of quiet and a lot of focus. And they just build it, scientifically, piece by piece, part by part. I would think, like Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd is more something like that, or an ELO album. Well, more like a Zeppelin album might be more spontaneous. Maybe they work better under the gun. Even though there's no bad Zeppelin album, but you know what I'm saying. All right. So I'll play a little bit of this. This is their first album, Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic. It's got a really cool sound. 80s alternative rock. Got that chorus. Her voice sounds so good on this album. I'll fast forward it. Oh, what am I doing? You guys gotta send me some money so I can buy a new radio. Very hypnotic. The guitar matches her voice so well. It just puts you in this hypnotic state. This is Here's Where the Story Ends. This was the biggest hit off the album.
People I know, places I go, make me feel tongue-tied.
By the way, do you guys like my new haircut?
I can see how people look down, they're on the inside. Here's where the story ends.
Alright, there's a cool chorusy part, the bridge. I think it's coming up right here. Jangly guitars. They liked a lot of sevens. Very tight. Alright, this is called Can't Be Sure. Again, it's got that chorusy guitar. You can tell they listen to a lot of the Smiths, which is fine by me because I like the Smiths a lot. Alright, this is a cool song too. I'll move on for sake of time. This is called I Won. It's funny, talking about winning. I was at a job today and this woman said she won the lottery. Like she used to buy birthday cards for people in her company, and so she bought, I guess, 30, 40 at a time. And other people won too. And this woman I talked to said she won $10,000. So I'm like, damn, maybe I should start playing the lottery. But if you buy for a bunch of people and you have this agreement, like whoever wins, we're all going to share, then your chances go way up. So I think she did some of that. Cool song. I'll fast forward. Alright, this is called Hideous Towns. In the 80s, I used to listen to a lot of, I had my categories, I love classic 70s rock. I was into some punk, like Ramones. I was into some 80s metal. And I was also really into 80s alternative, like the Sundays, the Smiths, Guadalcanal Diary, all sorts of 80s bands, the Replacements. It's hypnotic. I mean, that word comes back to me again and again. It's a hypnotic album. You're Not the Only One I Know.
Where's the home? Boys sing it down. You won me in the lottery. And where's the home? I'm talking out loud. When I'm on my own, what's so wrong? Reading my style.
Fast forward. Not the only one I
the only one.
Cool. I mean, am I just gonna play this whole album? I guess every song is good off here. There's not a bad song on this album. Fast forward.
Go your way, and I said, oh no, live your life, stake your claim. Your teachers
called I Kicked a Boy. Cool song.
I kicked a boy till he cried. I could have been wrong, but I don't think I was. Such a child. When I'm alone, I remember so well.
It's funny, there's a boy looking at me in the backyard. He's watching me hold this radio and... Oh no, he's looking at a deer. I thought he was looking at me. I'm such an egotistical bastard. There's this huge deer in the backyard. So that's a good song. My Finest Hour. I mean, they're all good.
And the world sells me out. My clothes, they sell me out. I never knew this before.
My Finest Hour
I've ever known
was finding a pound the underground. All right, last song, Joy. Another hypnotic song. All right, I just hit 18 minutes, so let me wrap this up. 1990s. This was their first album in 1990. Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic, The Sundays. I think it's their best. Their other two are good too. But did I even mention the third album? Let me look at my notes. Yeah, the third album was called Static and Silence. Yeah, not as, I don't know, it doesn't have the coolness quality as this first one. So, all three are good albums, they're fine, but I'd recommend this one, in my opinion. Okay, Frosty the Songman, Red Radio Reviews. Thanks for listening.